Welcome to SEO Conspiracy.com. And we keep on going with one of the masters of SEO, a true legend of SEO. He's too modest to would admit that he's part of, Bill Swarsky, ladies and gentlemen. You are a legend. How does that feel to be part of history?
I don't feel like I'm a legend.
But
I'm just learning what I can and sharing what I can.
you know what the secret is, and that's also something where we agree on without knowing each other, is a proper dealer will say never get high with your own stash. We help companies, individual organizations become famous on the internet.
Yeah.
And if that gets to your head when you go to do a public talk in an event and you have other people who are asking for selfie, I'm an SEO who signs autographs. Like, come on, guys. Okay. And if that starts getting to your head,
Yeah.
you're in danger because you are getting high with your own drugs. And you're right to not feel like a legend.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry to say you are. And today we are talking about the big topic because previously it was the huge shakedown, Panda Penguin, the Google Zoo. And today is a decisive move. Google decided to go from strings to things. That was the quote of Amit Singhal. Can you explain to us what does that mean?
Trying to think of give a quick history lesson here. It might be worth knowing. So Google launched PageRank in 1998. In 1999, Sergey Brin had his chance file patent where he said, okay, we're going to do things a little bit differently. Here's 5 books. Here's the titles, the authors, the publishers, so on. We're going to crawl the web. We're going to look for all the websites that list these 5 books. And once we find one, we're going to copy all the information about all the other books. And we're going to look at the relationships between the books, who their publishers were, when they were published, so on. So we're going to index part of the web. We're going to look for facts. We're going to crawl facts about the web and relationships between those facts. And we're going to index that. And it's not PageRank, but it's a way of gaining information about the web, about things we're interested in.
We looked at that pattern the other day.
Yeah. And this is 1999, right?
Mm.
So it's not too much longer after PageRank happened, and it's not too. It's a different approach than crawling websites and indexing links, but it's looking at books as if they were nodes and the facts about those books as if there were edges between the nodes, and it was a way of indexing content. And Google, at some point, 2005 or so, they started a project. They called it the Annotation Framework. And there's a search engineer named Andrew Hogue who now works on search at Foursquare, I believe. And he was in charge of this annotation framework. And they were supposed to be writing patents and building stuff that was a lot like the knowledge graph, except it wasn't the knowledge graph. They were referring to it as a browsable fact repository. And the annotation framework is a way of marking up knowledge between entities, like the knowledge graph does now. He was also responsible for the acquisition of MetaWeb, which is where Freebase came from, and what Google ended up basing the knowledge graph upon. And this way of gaining information about facts on the web is a very different approach than collecting information about web pages that are indexed. It's a way of being able to answer questions that people might ask directly instead of saying, here's a bunch of web pages, look for it on those, you might find the answer. And say, okay, we can give you the answer. If the answer is this, because we've looked at all the facts about those entities and we understand relationships about them. It's a different way of working the web. It's so featured snippets that answer questions, answer boxes, so on. The idea is to provide knowledge. And about 7, 8 years ago, Google changed their search division. They gave it a new name. They said, this is now the knowledge division. And it was knowledge is information about relationships between entities, or between entities and attributes of those entities, or between entities and classification of those entities. The relationships are the knowledge. And that's what Google's indexing, knowledge.
It's actually, I was just thinking about it. I don't know why it came up while you were talking. I was like, it really looks like what Edward Snowden showed about how the NSA is doing things also, because the truth is, it's not about profiling you. It's about who are you in relation with. That's what the NSA is looking at.
So Google came out with a patent last year where they said, we're no longer going to search for information about quotes in knowledge bases. We're not going to look on Wikipedia. We're going to analyze all the video in YouTube, and we're going to identify who said those things you're looking for a quote about by understanding what's in the audio. And this way we can show you as a search result videos of people seeing those things, because that's probably what you're looking for when you're looking for a quote.
Can we recommend people reading this first article on Go Fish Digital? So to explain the difference is what you publish on Go Fish Digital is a little bit an easier read and it's less patenty.
Well, these still tend to be complicated. They're just a slightly different approach. So this one right here, stop, go back. See the center circle is Bryce Harper, and there are lines from each of those. Bryce Harper to the right, toward upwards, is a person. So is a sort of a association score. That's a confidence score. It's most likely that that's true, that he is a person. So if we look down underneath is a career home run total of 60 home runs. That's a fact about Bryce Harper. It's an attribute. It's again, they're calculating a quality score, how likely it is that that's correct. And they're doing that by understanding how reliable and how popular the websites that contain that information are. And they're trying to assess some type of accuracy, looking at those facts. Now, they're talking about entity extraction because they seem to have gotten tired of relying upon places like Wikipedia for facts about things. And they said, okay, we can crawl news articles and other websites and identify entities and look at these relationships, sort of like a subject, verb, object type thing, and give them scores, confidence scores, and how likely it is they're true. And this is how we're going to collect information that we're going to update the knowledge graph with. And this is a direction they're likely taking because it doesn't rely upon a human-edited source of knowledge like Wikipedia, which maybe has some human biases. So if they can get lots of sources from lots of different places, like a Wall Street Journal, a New York Times, Daily Mail, some other sites that contain information like that, and extract that information, they can update these knowledge graphs quickly. And they're using the knowledge graphs to do question answering. They can possibly do a lot more with them when they can start comparing information. We have Google Local Search, which was part of that annotation framework I was talking about, where they said, okay, we're going to treat businesses as local entities, and we're going to collect facts about those businesses' attributes, what time they're open, where they're located, what their address is, what their phone number is. Uh, so at some point, Google may be able to do searches like uh, someone searches for an antique shop near a Chinese restaurant because they want to go shopping for antiques and they want to eat lunch. And they want two places close to each other. So this idea of being able to find two businesses that are near each other is appealing. I'd like to see that come out. And it's something that Google might be able to do with local search in the future.
But if we track back to really the beginning,
Yeah.
Amit Singhal was the student of Professor Salton, the Salton Cosinus.
I didn't know he's a student of Salton.
He was. And if you look at this, it's still kind of the same spirit, right?
Yeah.
It's still about, and it's alive. like Bill Sosky is associated with Patton because, and that wasn't the case before, and maybe you're also becoming associated with more things as maybe you will start doing. I don't know if you go. Fishing because there's already some sea and fish around you. But then if you make if you open a blog about fishing and you start building your influence about fishing, that will definitely collide. So that's what's fascinating. That's they started with a Salton Cosinus and so on. They were calling the pages and they were finding association. Okay, we have so many documents that have Abraham and Lincoln next to one another. So Abraham and Lincoln must have something to do with one another.
So
that was the beginning.
Barack Obama is mentioned on a lot of pages with Michelle Obama. He's mentioned on a lot of pages with Hillary Clinton. You ask Google who Barack Obama married to, and it'll tell you Hillary. It'll tell you Michelle Obama, even though he appears on pages where both women show up. It's usually the relationship is shown that he's married to Michelle, and they have confidence scores. They say this is most likely correct.
So that was your way, and then they bought MetaWeb, Freebase. And basically, they put like a barcode. No, how is it in English? On the product, like those little lines. That is that a code barcode or how do you call it?
It's a barcode.
Barcode, yeah. So basically, that's what they did. They put a barcode on everything. I mean, they bought that database with all those barcodes.
The company GS1 invented barcodes about 40 years ago. They use this type of information now. They've developed the schema themselves.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Because that's my simplification for people to understand what does that mean, entity, and how do you...
They have one for e-commerce. They've got a wizard for it, which is really nice. It's complicated, but it's worth using if you're doing e-commerce.
Oh, definitely. I'll check it out. But to go back to these strings to things, so it was about relationship and now things, But even if you can put a ID number on Jaguar, it still doesn't help because you need context.
Okay, so a dog in French is chien.
Chien, yeah.
Okay. So dog and chien are the same entity.
Oh, are they? I didn't know that.
They're different words, right? They're different strings of text.
Okay.
But same entity.
Okay.
So if I search for a dog on a French website, I want to see chien.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know the language barrier was.
So the meaning is the same, even though the language is different. So that's
interesting.
Part of the reason why you're going for a string things not strings approach, because it becomes language agnostic.
That's very interesting. And we will talk next time about RankBrain, machine learning, the situation now. But most definitely, without all this upgrade in computer powers and SSD and all that, do you think the technology was really a big factor in that move? And they say, okay, now we can do it because we have all this computer power, or was it totally independent?
So PageRank was named after Larry Page. It wasn't named after its ability to rank pages.
True.
So Page had his patent in 1998, and Bren had his patent in 1999, and Bren was indexing entities. He was indexing things. I think to some small degree, it's Bren's turn.
That's interesting.
I mean, it may be as simple as that, but the idea of moving from search to knowledge makes sense. I mean, they in 2012 when they talk about knowledge graph, they talk about indexing real world objects, and I think that's a direction search engines need to go. It can't just be about language. It can't just be about those strings of words. What people are called. You have people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's Terminator, Kindergarten Cop, things like. Okay, so this one, ranked entities in search.
So what you're saying is this new, I mean, fairly
Okay,
new pattern because it's hold on, yeah, 2017. This is directly inspired by the brain pattern of 99.
Yeah, entity extraction one. It's related to this even closer.
Really, that's interesting.
So if I do a search for best science fiction novels of 2020,
Mm-hmm.
Google will return a lot of search results. They talk about what the best science fiction novels are, and it'll create a knowledge graph from those results. It'll extract entities from those pages and build them into a knowledge graph and provide a list of entities that fulfill that best books of 2020, best science fiction books of 2020. So it's doing entity extraction. It's doing what the relationships are, what the confidence levels are, how likely those books are science fiction books, who the authors are, where they're published, how popular those books are, and it's ranking the books on the basis of all that attribute information about the entities it's extracted from the mini knowledge graph it's created to answer that query. So you have lots of people potentially asking queries, asking Google facts, and Google creating these mini knowledge graphs, which it can then compile all together to roll into the knowledge graph we know from Google, the whole one, the big one, the universal knowledge graph.
But Bill,
Yeah.
many people come up to me and say, Google is so smart now. For the record, Google still doesn't understand what it reads like a human does, especially when it comes to nuance, when granularity, and so on.
Okay, so AJ Cole writes a blog he calls Blind 5-Year-Old. And it's a metaphor based on what he thinks of Google's capabilities of understanding what it reads. It's not very good at it. When people say, should XML sitemaps be optimized for user experience? I say, yeah, and the users are Microsoft, Bing and Google.
Hmm.
So those are your users. They're not people. You're not making XML sitemaps accessible for people.
Hmm.
XML sitemaps are machine readable. Their purpose is to provide information for a machine. Ideally, you're going to provide URLs that return 200 status codes. Okay, that's what they want to see.
And Google doesn't know what is a first name, an address, 5 stars, 3 stars. What does that mean?
It's learning.
But without the structuration of the data, and there's a flaw there, I believe, because how do you trust the source?
Well, that's why Google's learning to create confidence scores, association scores between entities and attributes.
Mm.
Because there was a survey last year that's I think Rand Fishkin did, where he asked if Google ranked pages on how accurate they were, and a large number of SEOs said yes. And I responded, I said, no, Google has no idea how accurate the pages are.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, let's ask Danny Sullivan. And he came back, he said, no, we have no way of knowing that.
Mm.
So when Google can do things like determine confidence scores for relationships between entities, those confidence scores, they're deciding whether or not something's correct or inaccurate or not.
Mm.
So when they decide that Barack Obama is married to Michelle Obama at a certain level of confidence, they're determining accuracy. And they're determining accuracy by analyzing the sources of that factual data, how popular the sites are, how often right they are, some other things, how close the factual information appears together. Does Michelle Obama and Barack Obama appear frequently on many of the same pages of websites? If they do, it's probably more true than not.
And we won't go down that rabbit hole, but there's also IP, cookie, all that good stuff that helps.
It's being able to understand how likely, based on probabilities, how likely it is that something's true or not.
Yeah, if Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are on the same IP, yeah, maybe a good hint. But definitely, that's another discussion for another day. The whole profiling part of Google. If we stay on this entity knowledge graph, the fact that it's able to even auto self-learn, and we will talk about it next time with the machine learning, deep learning, AI. I have trouble saying that AI, artificial intelligence, because that's totally just marketing. Do you think that it was the right move, even with what we will talk about next time? I'm doing a lot of spoiler for you guys to watch next episode. but knowing what you know today, or was it inevitable? Because it's not only Google; they're all doing the same thing. All the search engines.
It's inevitable. It's completely inevitable. It's because they're providing what their audience wants, and their audience wants answers to questions.
Mm-mm-mm. But the loss of granularity, the loss of finesse, and we always take that example on how to tie a bow tie. That's easy. But
Right.
now,
So another one they came out with was they said some queries are entity answering queries.
mm,
So if you ask a question like, what is the hotel that's shaped like the sail of a sailboat? Okay, there's a hotel in the Middle East that looks like a sail from a sailboat. And that's the answer. They want a specific answer, a specific place. But some queries are like, what are the best restaurants in New York City? And for a query like that, they want a list of links to restaurants.
True.
So searchers want certain things, and sometimes they want answers. Sometimes they want to look stuff up and to actually do more searching.
But they want when they want an advice,
Yeah.
maybe profiling is good. Maybe tracking is good because if you have this added information,
Yeah.
then the search engine will be able to target you a lot better than if it doesn't know. Again, if you are a wildlife photographer and you type jaguar, will not be the same answer than if you
Well,
are a
it,
car
it might
enthusiast.
it might be if you need a new car.
Exactly. Or if you're a wildlife photographer who needs a new car and you live in England, that might complicate things a little bit. But the debate is always about this customization and profiling, and you do see that. Well, we are going down this rabbit hole a little bit, but it's a big debate today: privacy, not privacy. And I remember a quote by Larry Page who said that at one point they were even better at serving relevant ads than returning relevant organic results. They were way more advanced in the ads part. I can't recall what year it was. He was still involved in a lot in the company, so that's already a few years. But
So I gave you an example of Google creating knowledge graphs for each query. So another thing they're potentially doing is creating user-specific knowledge graphs, or knowledge graphs that are relevant for each person.
I call that the person rank.
So, so if I want information about playing a certain song, and I play the electric guitar, I do a search for the song. Google might show me links to scores of that song for in guitar tablatures, right?
Mm-mm-mm.
They might personalize those results for me and provide a knowledge graph based upon things they know I'm interested in or have experience with.
We spoke about it before. I remember. But do you remember, Will? Because that was during the long podcast, the Wonder Wheel or the Magic Wheel. Yeah, it was the
Right.
Wonder Wheel, right? And that was way like that. That was 2008 or something like that. So that was way before that switch, right? But already you could see the relationship. They took that away very quickly. I think they would give us a lot. They would give us too much with that tool.
I think they weren't quite ready to support it.
uh, because some of the results I saw with that tool were blowing my mind. Like, really, how can they understand that relationship back then? Like, without the profiling part, no, they would not. It was not possible.
Yeah.
So that was over 10 years ago, with all those mad scientists they have on board. The only thing stopping them, in my opinion, is the fact that most of the stuff is not scalable to the level of Google. Because it's one thing to have a patent and another thing to use the patent in the lab and another thing to develop it, to put it out in the wild at Google's level.
Well, that's why the Google got rid of the Google directory. And it's why they're moving away from Wikipedia as a source for the knowledge graph.
Sure.
Because they want something that's globally scalable.
Exactly.
They don't want to rely upon something that's manually edited.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely the limit of ODP or the Google directory and Wikipedia, is that the human factor. That's very true. But what's funny is that to validate the machine learning, they need humans.
It
But
makes sense. It makes sense.
you have to train the machine, and you have to validate if the machine is right or not. But then the good thing is that it maybe is more scalable than having Wikipedia or ODP, because you just need a low level type of validation, and then you can move on.
You need the training data, then you need testing data, and then once you're satisfied with it passing your tests, you release it on unsupervised data that it does its work on.
Uh, I don't think that many people know that unless you study the topical PageRank. But ODP, or the Google Directory, was the base of to understand who is in relation to what and why. They started out with the 16 categories and dig deeper, and then I even think that I know that the Majestic's topical trust flow is also exactly based on that. So from that little directory, from that directory, a lot happened. But it's very interesting that it all started out with a directory and an encyclopedia, which is pretty magical if you think about it, because both were pure creation of the internet, pure great ideas of the internet, and then the machine took over and learned from that, and the rest is history.
Look at the categories for images in image search at Google. They're full ontologies of semantically related topics. You search for a specific person or place, and they break them down into a lot of categories. And they're very good at that. They don't need human-built edited directories to do that anymore.
Before we finish this episode, and next we'll move on to the machine learning part. Now that you bring up images,
Yeah.
when we think about SEO, it's always text.
Yeah.
I read a recent study that compared the technology of image analysis, and Google Vision came up first, like way first, and Amazon, and the last one was IBM Watson. But voice seems to be a problem. Images, they seem to be pretty good. Video, I don't know, because you have only 4 formats. You have text, image, audio, and video. And images.
Yeah.
Text, they're good. Images, we see a lot of progress fast. It's actually surprising me. Did you think they were going to move that fast on images and being able to understand the images? Analyze. Sorry, not understand. Analyze. Yeah, you also were surprised by the speed at how they improved image recognition. And that's probably all due again to computer power, because there's so much leverage on being able to crush data. But what about voice? There was a big hype a couple of years ago when that whole Alexa and Google Assistant.
I think that was overdone. I think a lot of voice at this point is speech to text and searches on the text.
Yeah.
There are some unique features of speech, and they're trying to understand those. Accents aren't noise. Accents can be used to personalize search results.
Yeah. And the nuance, the way you might use some words in a different intent. A word might sound negative, but it might be used in a friendly way. So voice seems to be a big challenge. I really thought that because of the hype, it it was up there, but now, yeah, you're right. It's pretty basic, huh?
It some of the same problems exist in text that exist in voice. I say football, and I mean a certain sport, uh, and I mean something very different than somebody from the UK.
Wait, Bill, stop. Hold the press, hold the press. Football is ours, okay, in Europe.
Right.
Well, I learned that American football was named after the size of the ball, which is 1 foot. Come on, let's be serious. You name a sport after the size of the ball? No, soccer is football. Find out another name. I don't care.
So football in Australia is something very different again.
True. Also, yeah, it's more like rugby.
So it depends on where you're searching
Yeah.
from, rather than what language you're searching in, or whether you're using text or speech.
Mm-mm. Exactly. Very true. And I'm able to break Google sometimes and to access like the pre machine learning treatment. I think because I'm in a place that doesn't exist for Google. But I remember Christine made screenshots pre RankBrain and after RankBrain from with the word sweets, which in England is candy, and in the US, well, sweet is just sweet, right? And candy is candy. And that was very interesting how you saw before how Google was just throwing everything at everyone and then sort it out. Okay, UK, they want candy, and in the US, they want sweet things and maybe a little bit of candy.
Yeah.
So now, how difficult is it for Google to? You said that it doesn't make a difference, dog and chien. Okay, fine. But still, with all these different languages, all these different variation of languages, Spanish alone, I think 23 countries have Spanish as an official language. And then Mexican Spanish has nothing to do with Spanish, even the words. And how complicated is it? Can you give us a sense of I know French give them a lot of trouble because of the accents. That was a pain. Is it true that Google.com and English is always way in advance compared to the other languages?
Don't know that.
Yeah. Because the problem I'm having is when people say that, Google Venezuela is easier to rank on than Google.com. Yeah, of course it's easier. I mean, it's less competition, and it feels like Google adapts the filters when they see like the SEO coming in the market as the aggressivity of the techniques, and they adjust. I've seen it almost real time with some niche where it was low key, and then we'll come in, and then suddenly it becomes extremely hard to rank. But it's definitely a mystery how they can treat so many languages and being able to scale it so fast. When you see an update, it's spread out all over the world, regardless of the languages and so on. Pretty impressive, huh?
It is.
So before we close down this, so it was inevitable that they moved from strings to things,
Yeah.
but they couldn't reset the whole thing. They kind of had to build upon. It's an old technology, Google, from the 90s. You can't just press reset, and it feels like that's what they are trying to do for the mobile index. They're trying to start all fresh, and maybe it's also why it's delayed, because they found out that, well, starting over is kind of difficult. The web is so big and it's growing so fast that the reset button and starting over is almost impossible today. You will never be able to catch up.
You want to make things that already exist on the web still findable,
Hmm.
even though they're not updating.
Yeah, but 90% of the web is crap.
So you introduce quality scores.
Yeah, but they 90% so it's so much wasted resources, and some people right now are thinking, okay, why not start over, and start from a fresh database where we need 50,000 queries. That's pretty much what represents like 80% of the needs for the regular folks, and this web is like a
So do we get rid of all the novels that were written before 1950?
No, not at all. It's the web still has a place, and of course for power users, and if you want to dig deep. But for the
So, those plays that Shakespeare wrote, he wrote those 500 years ago. They're still some of the most performed plays in the world.
yes, but Bill, the reality is, I don't know about the US, but in France, 4 websites equals half of the bandwidth. Okay.
Okay?
Netflix, Facebook, Google, and I forgot the fourth. Half of the bandwidth. It's wonderful to have access to all this knowledge, but so very few use it. That's a shame. Everybody wants the same thing. Women shoes on sale. Okay, to end up on a positive note. Okay, no, but go ahead. You were thinking.
I was thinking the long tail.
Yeah.
Amazon proved that people will buy books from what seems to be an endless warehouse that has every type of book. And if they only buy 10 or 20 of those books per year, Amazon's still going to continue to make lots of money because there is an interest in such a wide variety.
My curveball will be Goodreads. Goodreads was born when Amazon was not the tsunami that it is now. It was just a river. And it's still going strong today because Goodreads, unlike Amazon, is when they don't sell books, they talk about books or they read books.
Yeah.
So those are the people who will find the first edition of a book from a Serbian author from the 18th century. And I'm very happy that there is a place for that. But I'm a little disappointed in the rest of humanity because it's so streamlined, it's so concentrated on very few things, and I wouldn't use the word waste, but I feel like there's people need to open up a little bit and get curious.
There's a value in having search engines that are capable of finding stuff that isn't searched for much.
Yeah. What's remarkable with Google is that they started with that, organizing the world's information and make it accessible to everyone as fast as possible, and they still stick to that.
Yeah.
So that's that comes with a price, and definitely privacy is part of that price. But to give Google credit, what they build is tremendous. I mean, so difficult, it's so amazing, and then let's end on that positive note, because if we want to give credit to Google for something, is they achieve what is impossible and think that, I mean, come on, Google Street View.
Some of the machine learning stuff is remarkable. So
Yeah, but even like making cars go all over the world, take pictures of every street and everything. The first time, I know you had the same feeling. The first time you connected to Google Earth, wasn't it like, wow, this is amazing?
Well, the Street View cars are Google bots on wheels.
Yeah, but that's a crazy idea to say we will we will take pictures of the entire world. It's pretty nuts. So we can critique Google all we want, and they are not perfect for sure, but they most definitely did something that changed humanity forever, and being able to make all this information available to us. You can find anything. Well, now the youngsters are like, you can find anything on YouTube, but that's different. We still like reading. Okay, Mr. Bill,
All right.
let's close this one. And the next time, yes, we will go even more into robots because is Rank Brain really the boss at Google? That's the question.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Oh, thank you.